AC Shadows has now been out for a month, a little over a month at this point, and it's done seemingly fairly well. It's topped the sales charts and it's sold over, or it's engaged over 3 million players, I think is the term they used. But it seems to be doing pretty solid. I spoke to some people that actually work at Ubisoft who have been, let's just say, frustrated by leadership in the past. And they said that internally they're pretty happy with it. And one person said that it did way better than they were expecting. That individual, I mean, not the company. The company was probably expecting it to do pretty well, but the individual was braced for it to do poorly with all the blowback and feedback. But it seems to be performing fine. But it's one of the things that was praised about it, at the very least, was on the tech side. It runs pretty well. It's pretty well optimized. It's even Steam Deck verified. It scales really well across hardware. And if you have the power to run it, really cranked with ray tracing stuff, it looks gorgeous. It just does. You don't have to like the game. The game could still be ass and be beautiful, but it does look very, very good. But one of the things that's interesting about it is that, of course, it was delayed out of what was supposed to be the end of last year. It was supposed to launch. It got delayed to Valentine's Day, and then it got delayed again into March when it eventually released. And that gave them enough time to polish the game for what it was and what was there. But as time has gone by and people have finished it, people have come back with some key points and frustrations, which primarily are that the ending is super, super abrupt, which is true. And there's parts of the game that feel very hollow. There's parts of the game that feel like there's big missing components. And what's interesting is the Hidden One actually collected a number of these, which did a fantastic job on this. And I just want to point these out because I saw them and I was like, thank you, finally somebody put it in a full list, because there's a bunch of these, but when you see them all put together, it starts to make more sense. And basically what I want to argue here is that they cut a lot from AC Shadows, not just the original ending of the story, but I think at some point in early to mid 2024, they realized, hey, if we're going to hit the fall release date, we just have to cut stuff. We don't have time to finish it, to polish it. We just have to cut stuff. So they decided to make major cuts. And then when Star Wars Outlaws released and wasn't ready for launch and performed quite poorly, they decided to delay it at that point, and they had time to polish up what they had. But they had already made all of these cuts, even though for a long time in development, I think they planned on having a ton more stuff. Like what? Well, as you can see here, Hidden One put this collection together. Why can Nawe change stance on the horse but not assassinate from that stance? Only eject. Valhalla lets you assassinate from that stance. If you're not familiar with this, in AC Shadows, when Nawe is riding on the horse, she can actually like hop up, kind of like on her haunches, is that the term? And get ready to assassinate, but there's no ability to actually assassinate, which is weird. Furthermore, why are there wandering merchants walking around, but you can't interact with them to trade? Could be mistaken on that one. Message pops up that factions reset. But what factions? If we're based on AC Odyssey, it's nothing like that. This is one of the things I pointed out, where a ton of stuff that was in Odyssey, which is the last game from this team, is just gone. But there's little mentions that suggest that it was there. It's strange. And again, I think it's because there probably was a factions system. There probably were mercenaries and things in the game that they cut for sake of time. Why are there no random notes or letters to collect? Something that has been there since Origins. Horses should have had stats, because why are they tiered? Common, rare, epic. But they're all the same. Yes, it's always been like that, but it's a missed opportunity to be refreshing. Yeah, I kept thinking they were going to add stats to horses, but they never did. Side quests with our hideout members, except Junjiro and Tomiko, and it would be similar to Ravensthorpe, where you have quests with Ranvi, Petra, Gunnar, Tove, but it feels like they're just there serving no purpose. Yeah, I mean, it also feels kind of hollow. There's not a lot to do. We know they're working on consistent and hopefully height gaining ejects from the teaser, which, if you're not familiar with this, they basically put out a teaser showing that they're working on something for AC Shadows, like the first expansion and new gameplay elements and stuff. One of them was they showed a bit of gameplay where Nawe actually ejects off the side of the wall, something that wasn't in the base game. So they're adding new parkour moves and abilities, which seemingly they would have cut because they had to, I guess, tighten up the time, but they're adding stuff like that back in. Yeah, why isn't that in the game beforehand? Again, I think it's because they ran out of time. The targets shown in the Ubisoft Forward event are not in the final game, and no, they aren't the corrupt Daikon or Twisted Tree. Their names in the Ubisoft Forward are not there. Yeah, that original gameplay trailer that they showed the walkthrough of the fight, and the targets and stuff, they're just not in the game. They're just cut. It's not like they repackage them, put them somewhere else. They're just gone. And then there's the ending, which I'm sure we all know about, feels cut entirely and most likely repackaged as the clause of a Waji DLC based on Slider V2's data mining, which is true. I think most likely they just decided they had to make major cuts in order to get the game ready for launch. And it's why they've said, you know, a delayed game will eventually be good, or can eventually be good, but a rushed game will never be good. And I think the problem with Shadows is that for the vast majority of its dev time, they were being rushed. I think they had the corporate attitude of, it's Assassin's Creed, it will do well regardless. Just like they said with Star Wars Outlaws, it's Star Wars. It'll do well no matter what. Even if it's buggy and like the AI isn't great, it'll do well. And then Star Wars Outlaws came out clearly in need of time and polish and refinement. And they realized that their assumption wasn't true. You can't just assume that because it's in a big IP, it'll sell well and that you can rush it. And I think that scared the crap out of the executives, because that was the entire philosophy for like 4 to 5 years on many of these big projects. Put it out, fix it later, make bank. But that's not true. That's not how it works. And so I think, you know, this is a clip of gameplay from MK Ice and Fire, but just so we have some little visual stimulation in the background as we talk about this. But I think the most interesting thing about Shadows is that it comes out, it's a pretty competent and complete package for what it is, even despite all of this. But it makes me really wonder what the game would have been like if they didn't have to rush it, if they were originally given an extra year or something. And I don't know if they needed the extra time because it was mismanaged. I don't know if it's because it was, I don't know, COVID messed things up. I really don't know. But it does seem like there were many things they wanted to do that were cut. I think they wanted to do like a mercenary system like Odyssey. They wanted to bring in the faction system from Odyssey. They had a ton of different things like that in the last game they made that they could have just copy and pasted over, but they cut all of it. And it doesn't really make sense why, unless it's just that they were being rushed so much that they had to cut it in order to finish what they actually had. And thankfully they were allowed time to polish it, but it just reaffirms the core idea that rushing games does not make them better. It doesn't magically make things work. You have to give devs time to do what they want to do and to fulfill the vision. And, you know, nowadays these games are massive and these games take a lot of time, a lot of money. But when you rush it, it's noticeable. Certain pieces are hollow. There's little bitty shadows of what was shadows. I didn't even mean to do that. There's shadows of things that were meant to be there. Comments where, you know, Nawe might say offhandedly, oh, the Ronin are following me. I have to be careful. Because there are Ronin enemies that kind of wander around randomly, but it doesn't actually, like, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't lead to anything. It's just like, oh, it's just like a random dynamic enemy. But it sounds like it was originally going to be a mercenary system like Odyssey had, where there's a whole army. If you're not familiar, I'm realizing now you might not have played Odyssey. Yeah, here. So this is from the Provoked Prawn Pews. what a name. And you can see that they had this system in Odyssey where there were a ton. It was very much inspired by Shadow of Mordor, actually. But they had a ton of mercenaries that would dynamically chase you around the map of all different levels. And based on what you did in certain areas, they would find out more information about you. So if you like caused a bunch of ruckus around a fortress, they would know that you were there. So then they would go and chase you down. And they had all different abilities. They had all different loot. Like, yeah, tier 2, a talented Mystios will have 10% better luck at finding great items in the world. So you had an incentive to actually pursue these and to take them out. And they basically offered little mini boss fights dynamically in the open world. And you can chase them down too. And you see unique weapons. They had their own dynamic skills, just like, you know, the orcs in Shadow of Mordor or Shadow of War. And you can see just while exploring, or you could go pursue them yourself, this guy comes across this mercenary. This is compressed so bad. Oh, it hurts. But it's just like a mini boss fight while exploring the open world. And I think they wanted something like this in Shadows, because again, the same team that made Shadows made this. Why couldn't they just copy and paste it over? I think they wanted to, but they didn't have time. I think that's what it is. So I think AC Odyssey is one of those games that I'm glad that it's as complete a package as it is, and they were given time to polish it. But it really makes me wonder what this game is going to be like in like a year or two, because presumably they're going to be adding in that stuff they had to cut. They're already adding in new parkour abilities. They're adding in new, story pieces with the free expansion. That's basically going to just be the ending to the story that they had to originally cut to get the game done before they were given time to finish it. So it's going to be interesting to see where it lands, but I hope, but we've said this 1,000 times, I hope this is the wake-up call to not just Ubisoft, but a lot of other companies, that you can't, just don't rush these things. Give them time. Give them time. They'll sell it as DLCs. Well, the actual story, what people assume and think, is the actual story ending that was cut for sake of finishing the game on time before they were given the delay. That is the expansion they're giving away for free. The Tales of Awaji or whatever, as part of the whatever, I forget if it was just for pre-orders, if it was just for buying it at launch. I don't remember what the deal was with it, but they are going to be doing that, and that'll at least complete the story, it seems, and then they're going to add in some of the other gameplay mechanics that they wanted to. I think if you didn't pre-order, I think it's 10. I think. Don't quote me on that though. So just to wrap this up real quick, it's going to be interesting to see where the game lands as time goes by. I'm hopeful that they can continue to make progress and they continue to improve it. But it's too bad that, just those delays can cause major problems long term. And you're seeing it now. I mean, you're seeing it now. There's no undoing that. No one ringing that bell. Once you've delayed it and caused the game to be totally shifted and changed because of all of the cuts you've had to make, you can't just undo it.
He took my thing.